I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and peri-menopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. You're tuned to the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and today I have a guest who is going to bring you a message of hope. No matter how old you are, how far into menopause or not you are, my guest today is going to share her experience and her expertise on how she healed herself from a tibia fracture, a torn ACL and meniscus without surgery, how she started competitive bodybuilding in her 50s, how she had a complete life change in the middle of COVID and a new marriage. She shares a little bit of everything with us today. This, of course, is Mareya Ibrahim, otherwise known as Chef Mareya. She is here with us on the show today. She is the host of the Real Dish podcast. She's a chef, a holistic nutritionist, a coach, and an author. And again, we talk about her own personal story, how she used food to heal herself, how she chose the supplements she did to support health, how to read a supplement label. She does teach us that too, because God knows, I don't know about you guys, but I could always use a touch-up in that because the information on there sometimes can just seem so complex. She also tells us how she managed to get bodybuilding in her 50s, how she eats and exercises for strength now, rather than when she was younger and experienced an eating disorder. And we talk about a little bit of everything. I just love hearing women's stories. It's so inspiring for me. She talked about cracking the code on eating and exercising for her age. What a concept. What a concept. Thank goodness we're bringing it all to light. Did you know magnesium deficiency is associated with heart palpitations and anxiety? But I bet your doctor didn't tell you that if you're experiencing that. Listen to Mareya. She shares her story of this very thing. Anyways, let me introduce her properly. I get so excited talking about this conversation because there's so much useful information in here for women, but mostly I want you to hear her story. Mareya Ibrahim Jones, otherwise known as Chef Mareya, the Fit Foodie, is a chef, holistic nutritionist, brain health coach, author, and award-winning inventor who thrives on helping midlife women live a purpose-filled life in their best shape. As a 30-plus year health and wellness industry expert, she's the host of the Real Dish podcast, the author of the #1 release book, Eat Like You Give a Fork, The Real Dish on Eating to Thrive, and is the creator of Fit and Fab Over 40, Meal Prep Club, and Eat to Thrive programs. She was also the signature chef to the New York Times multi-million copy bestseller, The Daniel Plan, 40 Days to a Healthier Life. She and I talk about this in this book, in this conversation. Her column, The Fit Foodie, has appeared in the Edible Orange County magazine since 2011. Mareya has contributed to dozens of media outlets, including Oprah.com, U.S. News and World Report, Health and Entrepreneur, and has been featured on The Doctors, Pickler and Ben, HSN, QVC, The Food Network, Live Strong, and 3 seasons of the Emmy-nominated cooking show Recipe Rehab. She's also an amateur bodybuilder, wife, mother of 5, and Live on Labs brand advocate. Find her at chefmareya.com and at Chef Mareya on social media. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Without further ado, here's Chef Mareya. The AG1 you've all heard me talking about for so long just went through a major upgrade. AG1's next gen is here. It's the same single scoop once a day, but now it's clinically backed and formulated with more upgraded vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. The new next gen formula offers a more advanced, clinically backed formula that fills common nutrient gaps and supports gut health, all in the same easy, once a day ritual. AG1 has been a game changer for my mornings. It sets the tone for my day, helps me feel my best, and like I'm taking care of my nutrient needs in one step. AG1's next gen includes 5 clinically studied probiotics and additional vitamins and minerals to support whole body health. Now clinically backed with an advanced formula, this is the perfect time to try AG1 if you haven't yet. I've been drinking AG1 daily for 6 years now, and I'm so happy to be partnering with them. Subscribe today and try the next gen of AG1. If you use my link, you'll also get a free bottle of AG D3K2, that's vitamin D3K2, an AG1 welcome kit, and 5 of the upgraded AG1 travel packs with your first order. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com. That's drinkag1.com/Fiona Lovely to get started with AG1's next gen and notice the benefits for yourself. That's drinkag1.com/Fiona Lovely. Okay, I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely. This is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast, and I'm excited today to introduce my guest, Mareya Ibrahim, who's coming to talk to us about all things midlife, all things about food, about how we can discern great information because there's so much information out there. Like, how do we know which supplements to take? How do we know what is solid information? Mareya, it's a mess out there. Help us, girlfriend. Welcome to the show.
I know. I want to give people hope today.
Please do. Please do, because I read your bio and I'm super excited to talk to you about some of the things that you dropped in the bio, which let me go there first. So how did you find yourself a chef, a podcaster, a holistic nutritionist, a coach, an author? How did you find yourself here?
Well, I've been in the food industry for over 30 years. I started in the natural products world, working for natural grocery stores, the Wild Oats and Whole Foods of the world. And, it became very apparent that coupled with my upbringing, which, being from the Middle East, the emphasis on fresh food was really lacking when we were getting started in the industry, and the stores that we represented, these natural food stores were that haven, that place that you could go and experience kind of like that farmer's market world that we now, that now is much more popular. But back then it was really like the boxy supermarket stores where most people just kind of live in the middle of the store in the packaged foods aisle. And I was just craving a different kind of way of eating. And I found that in the natural products world. And it just really became apparent to me that we were missing the mark. We were so concerned about at that point, like low fat and, oh my gosh, stay away from, protein or any fat. It's really like all about the carbs. And we've learned so much over the years now. And, kind of fast forward to 15 years ago, I created a line of products called Eat Cleaner. And Eat Cleaner was and still is. I sold the company 2 years ago to Joy Mangano and Pitbull. But Eat Cleaner is really a way for people to cleanse their fruits and vegetables of wax, pesticide residue, and make it more convenient to eat. So I've always been interested in how do we serve up food that's delicious, that's nutritious, that feels chefy, that checks all the boxes on macronutrient balance because that really changed my life. And, fast forward to now that I am fully in menopause, I see like I have to be, and I know your listeners are nodding their heads right now, I have to be much more vigilant than I was in my 20s and 30s and even 40s on how I eat because all of that affects our health so much more significantly.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. A couple of things I want to pick up on. You're absolutely right. I was just talking to a patient yesterday in the clinic about how he said, just go home and have a cocktail. I said, I wish. If I have a cocktail, it means I'm not sleeping, and it's just not worth it for me at this point in my life, right? It's so true how when you think about when we were in our 20s, we didn't even think twice about that. We took things like sleep and health and our weight, our healthy weight for granted, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that I discovered. And mind you, I was going through peri during the pandemic.
Mm.
I had just gotten remarried. I had been a single mom for 13 years and kind of uprooted my life, moved with my teenage son. My daughter ended up, going off to college. And it was kind of a new world. And within 2 months, the pandemic happened after
Oh
we got
boy.
remarried. We had to merge 5 teenage kids together in a family.
Wow.
I started going through peri. Oh, and I tore my ACL and meniscus in a freak
Oh.
accident playing basketball with my husband and my son. So it hit like a brick wall, and I wasn't getting answers from my GP, and I thought that I was losing my mind at one point. Fiona, I
Mhm.
was starting to have such bad anxiety and heart palpitations. I thought I was having a heart attack
Mhm.
and I wasn't getting answers. And so I really had to kind of become the detective of my own health and figure out why. Why am I experiencing all this? And, one of the things that I was severely low in was magnesium.
Mm.
And that was, we know how incredibly important magnesium is for heart regulation, and we become the most at risk group over 50, of heart disease, and heart disease
Mhm.
runs in my family. And I wasn't eating or working out for my age. And when I cracked the code on all of that, not only did I get healthier, but I kind of fixed my emotions and fixed my brain so that the brain fog lifted. And, I started feeling more kind of like not out of body, but in my body. And oh, well, then I started bodybuilding. And it's just such a crazy thing because I have to say, had I just given up on myself, which there were many times I was just like, this is my new reality. I'm just going to be miserable and I'm going to not be happy with, my body. Had I given up on myself, I just would have been doing not only myself a disservice, but really everybody around me.
Absolutely. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, and thank you for sharing that story, because here's the thing, it takes a lot of work to understand what's going on. Not everyone is like you and I that has understanding of human anatomy, human physiology, etc., or is interested in it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what our doctors are for, but our doctors are failing us in a lot of ways in this case. And so being able to advocate for self. I had a patient in the office yesterday, and she said to me, she was darn near in tears, and I gave her hope over something she had been suffering from for a really long time. She saw all kinds of specialists, and everybody said, no, nothing can be done. And I gave her some information, and she said, I just don't get it. Why, at the age of 63, I think she said she was, or is, she said, why has nobody said this? And I said, because it's just an old way. It's an old way. And I said to
Mm.
her, the thing that I think is critical, and with you sharing too, is that she and I are strong-willed and voiced women. Mareya, you too. We
Yeah.
can speak up for ourselves. We can advocate for ourselves, but there's a lot of women who can't do that for a lot of reasons, or choose not to. And so when you share your story of hope, of what you've learned, then someone listening who maybe for whatever reason doesn't have access to the care that she should have, she will have tools. So,
100%. Yeah, and it's true because I look back and I mean I checked a lot of things off of my like wanting to do list, career wise. And I felt like, okay, here I am on the outside looking accomplished, but on the inside, I am crumbling. I'm
mm,
literally just, I feel like I'm falling apart.
mhm.
And to compound all of that, the fear of the pandemic and all of the issues that we went through emotionally, it was just like it was the perfect storm of internal chaos. And there's one thing that I came away from that experience with, and that is my mantra is you can't control everything that's going on around you, but you can control how you react to it.
Mhm.
And the way we react to our external, influences really is we can either choose peace or chaos, right?
Yes.
And I just needed to choose peace. I needed to do it for the well being of my marriage, of my kids, of myself. And there are a lot of things that I decided that I was going to change. Like you said, alcohol, for example, and we live in such a society where alcohol is like this social lubricant. It's almost like if you don't drink, it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yep.
And, I might take a sip or two every once in a while, but you will not find me drinking a cocktail or drinking a glass of wine because I know I'm going to pay for it later. And I
Yes.
refuse. A good night's sleep is way too
Yes.
important to me,
Yes.
and even eating. I was very much an intuitive eater. I would kind of eat when I felt hungry. But the problem here is that we start to lose muscle mass and the requirements of a menopausal woman with, waning estrogen and progesterone, we actually need more protein to keep that muscle mass. So I started really changing how I even approached meals. Not that you have to be a carnivore by any means, but prioritizing protein and looking at having that as our clean source of energy as the priority energy is really important. And it changed. I just had some blood work done. And, I used to be a carbaholic. I mean, if it was round and brown, it was down, like bagels, cookies, muffins, like that was
Yeah.
my jam. And I just got my labs back and they haven't been that good in a really long time. So I think just how we manage our changing health. It's kind of like dressing for the weather. Like you wouldn't go out in a bikini in the middle of winter. We just have to be more vigilant about how we take care of ourselves at this age. And it's totally possible to even feel better and biologically look better than we did, in our 30s and 40s.
Yes, and this is the message that needs to get out more because there's so many women, and it's not just women in our age group, but it's the younger ones too, who are in the mess. They're in the mess of perimenopause and they're not getting help. And like you said, there were lots of times you thought you were, did you say you thought you were losing your mind or you thought
Oh
you were
yeah,
going crazy?
many times,
Yes, me
many
too.
times.
Me too. I had no, listen, I'm a menopause expert. I have been that for 20 years. I had no idea the depth of which my own thinking and thought patterns and responses to the world would change so much with the egress of my hormones and the up and down nature of my hormones. It was, I mean, I knew it textbook wise, but I didn't know it until I experienced it. And it's like it can be a tidal wave or it can be a desert. And it's just not, I think there's not enough talking about it. And so when you and I sit and have this conversation and share that we felt like we were, I felt like I was losing my mind half the time too. And I remember saying to my husband, being like, oh my God, I hope like hell we're still together at the end of this. Because I think this is why marriages break down because
It,
we
it
change.
it is, I think it's almost like a requirement that every woman that is going through, it's kind of like going through puberty. It's the big transition. And going through puberty, there's a lot of attention paid to like what's changing in your body. And, we're more coached, I feel like, actively at during that transition. But during this midlife transition, and for so many years, it was almost like a taboo subject. Menopause was like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
nobody talks about menopause. And I'm
Hmm.
so glad to see that conversation opening up and shifting. But I think what we really need to do is demystify it for women and
Hmm.
men. Because if you love
Hmm.
your woman, you want to understand too what's going on with her. And the good news is that you can use lots of different things. And I created this Fit Over 50 free guide so that people could understand like what I went through and how I managed it, because so many people were asking me like, how did you decide to become a bodybuilder? Like, how did you
Yes.
like
Let's
what
go there.
yeah, and so I was always a cardio bunny, always like, doing classes and focused on cardio. And it was almost like I woke up one morning and was like, wow, I have no muscle mass. Like, what happened, And it really changed my perspective on food, because if you're not getting enough calories and you're not getting enough protein, you can't build muscle.
Hmm.
So, in order to, build bone density and avoid sarcopenia and all of the things that we know aging well in midlife entails, I really shifted that idea that exercise is about penance. It's about burning calories. Instead, it's really about building muscle. And when you eat well and you eat to thrive, which I wrote a book about eating to thrive, called Eat Like You Give a Fork. When you
Great
focus,
title.
yeah, when you focus on that, then you can build muscle, then you can burn fat, then you can stoke your metabolism. But if you're not eating enough, for example, which a lot of women think they're just supposed to eat less,
Hmm.
you're actually putting your body in a deprivation mode, almost like crisis mode. Like, I got to hunker down for the winter because I'm not sure when I'm getting another meal.
Yeah.
And we have to really, really rethink eating. Like,
Hmm.
no more bird plates, please.
Bird plates.
We need to be eating protein. We need to be eating good, colorful fruits and vegetables. We need to be eating good sources of fat. And when we think in macronutrient terms, that kind of, I call it the holy trinity, when you get all of those different macronutrients onto your plate, then you're feeding the whole you. But no more of this like, I'm going to eat a salad with no protein on it, and that's going to be my meal. Like, I want the women out there to know you need to eat, and you probably need to eat more than you think you do in order to be metabolically fit.
Yes. And what a shift that is. We talk a lot on the show about now we're shifting from exercising to be skinny and eating to be skinny to exercising to be strong and eating to be strong. These things are such a big shift. I don't know why we couldn't give it to ourselves when we were in our 20s, but regardless, here we are. This is Gen X. We're figuring it out now. I love the conversation, and it is a profound shift when you may move your diet to that place where you're focusing on the macros and feeding the whole you. You are fueling the machine. And that's exactly what you're saying here. So you moved from cardio to strength training, am I right?
Yeah, and I still do cardio. When you're getting ready for a competition, it's really important to do both. But my main emphasis is always on building and eating. Really important to eat as much, or if not more, than your workouts. Like, when you're getting ready for a competition in the last, 12 to 16 weeks, your workouts don't change significantly, but your food does. So, what really is going to shift somebody is focusing on clean, lean protein, getting unrefined carbohydrates and lots and lots of green vegetables. And if we just think that way, regularly, I mean, you don't have to diet, but you can enjoy those foods on the regular. I mean, we kind of have the technology. We just need to follow the plan. Personally, I saw in me a big change in that, I struggled with an eating disorder for the better part of a decade. So this idea of eating more was very scary. It
Hmm.
was like this very, oh my gosh, I'm going to be changing. I have to reprogram my brain really to accept that I need to do that in order to build muscle. And today, as I sit before you, I'm about 8 pounds heavier than I normally am, than I normally was, but my muscle, my BMI is actually better.
Mm.
So you build muscle, you actually create better body composition. So there's a recomposition that ends up happening when you are in this phase of life. And if you can focus on building muscle, it's going to help you in the long run.
Yes, absolutely. Prevent frailty, etc. Well, there's so many good reasons, and we do talk about these things on the show, but I'm struck by something as I'm listening to you speak right now. Can you imagine our mothers and our grandmothers sitting around talking about this at the age that you and I are at? Would that have happened?
I, man, I wish it would have happened. But you know
Me
what's
too.
great is it's happening now, and my daughter and son get to see a strong woman that,
Yes.
can run around with them, and goes to the gym with them and works out with them and challenges them. And, I think we're changing the conversation, which it's a wonderful thing to see. And for me, like a big part of this journey has been supplementation. I can tell you as a food industry
Mhm.
person for over 30 years that even if you eat the right way, a lot of our food is void of essential nutrients, things that, like vitamin C, that, if you're eating an orange and it was picked 6 days ago, it's losing 40 to 60% of its vitamin C. So what I've also learned in all of this is key supplementation is really critical. And it's really made a big difference. And I can see it in my labs, like just how I've changed, even in the last year, it's really made a difference. So I think that conversation for a long time was like, oh, well, if you eat the right way, then you don't need to worry about it. And I think that's a myth.
Yeah, it's outdated. We haven't considered in that statement that our soils are depleted, that the way crops are sprayed for bugs, etc. I think that changes ultimately. So I love that you brought that up. But let's go back to the supplementation idea. I want to bring up something you said earlier about magnesium deficiency.
Mhm.
And then I would like to talk about vitamin C as well, too. Two of my favorite things to talk about. So I don't know, you decide which one you want to talk about first.
Oh, whichever.
Oh, let's go magnesium because you
Okay.
said part of the reason you felt like you were having such a decline in health is because you were magnesium deficient. So let's talk about that journey for you, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the longest time, and again, my GP never ever brought this to my attention. There was never any discussion with my physician about magnesium, but I started to look into it because I was like, okay, I'm having heart palpitations. I'm having anxiety attacks. I am, going through all this. I know I'm changing hormonally, but what is happening? And, I don't know, Fiona, if you believe in this, but I had sort of like a Holy Spirit moment.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was just like I had a Holy Spirit moment, and it was
Yeah.
like it's magnesium. And
Oh, the goddess spoke and you listened. I'm
and
glad you listened.
I was like, okay, let
Yeah.
me start taking magnesium. I'm going to tell you that it was within a day that I started feeling better. And what we don't know is for us ladies who love coffee, if you don't have enough magnesium in your body, like coffee will literally leach it out of your bones. It'll leach it out of your cells. So if you're, and that was another thing that really changed. I have about half a cup of coffee, maybe a full cup a day, but I really avoid caffeine. I used to drink like 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day, and started focusing more on hydration. We should be drinking half our body weight in ounces of water every single day, but I started also using an electrolyte packet, and that made a really big difference. Now, magnesium comes in all different forms. There's like, I think, 7 different forms of
Mm-hmm.
magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from an interview that I had on my podcast that, about 99% of the magnesium in our bodies is within our cells. So it's really important to get a magnesium that has the ability to get into your cellular structure so that it can actually feed your cells effectively. And that's where I learned about lipospheric encapsulation. And it just blew my mind, how they could, this company called Live On Labs, how they could create this product that actually had the ability to encapsulate even something water soluble
Mm-hmm.
and have it be able to penetrate the cell wall because it's encapsulated in a material that mimics the same structure as that fatty layer of the cell wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed a lot of things for me.
Yeah, amazing. So, I also love this technology. I find it so different taking a live on magnesium supplement than it is taking any other magnesium supplement I've ever taken.
Yeah.
Again, there's some kind of magic in there for sure. But and maybe we can talk about what that exactly is. But I actually call it brain fuel because when I take the Live On Magnesium supplement, I find it's like my brain turns on in a different way, which is I love that about it. But okay, so different kinds of magnesiums we can take. Which are the ones we want at perimenopause, and what was your experience?
Well, my experience, I really had one kind of just magnesium supplement that I was taking. I didn't really pay attention to it, but it was magnesium citrate.
Mhm.
When I started taking the Live On, and I ended up, now I'm taking the C, the magnesium. I take the B vitamins, the B
Mhm.
complex, which is another thing that's super, super important for midlife women and managing stress. And I have a few of the packets here, actually. And I also take ALA, which is a fantastic antioxidant,
Yeah.
and glutathione. So when I found out that, I could take their magnesium and have it work the way it does, I kind of just stopped shopping around for products where I could take multiple, types of magnesium because it was doing the work for me.
Mhm.
And I'm not as much of an expert in all of the different types, but I did find that this was really effective. And again, I think it's a lot of it has to do with your body's ability to actually uptake the
Mhm.
nutrient, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of the times we'll take a supplement, and if the body isn't able to actually absorb it or uptake it into the cell wall, or in some cases, yes, it's in the bloodstream, but really you want it into the cell, then it's
Mhm.
just sort of like,
Why are you bothering?
I don't really know
Yeah.
if it's doing any good.
Yeah, you can have the best supplement, the most expensive supplement out there, but if it can't get delivered into the tissue that requires it, save your money, right? This is what I love about this technology too. It's a very good thing. Now, what do you take the ALA for? The alpha lipoic
It
acid.
is another antioxidant. It's really good for muscle repair.
Mm,
When you're lifting weights, you're tearing muscle down, and those little mini cuts are what's building muscle back up.
mhm,
So I found it to be really effective with my weightlifting. And, it's really about building that lean muscle mass. It's also an antioxidant. There's a lot of inflammation that happens with weightlifting, with exercise in general. So when you can take, antioxidants in a form that your body really loves, I just find my recovery is so much better.
mhm,
And
mhm.
again, like at 56, I can lift more and keep up with, like people half my age. So I'm like,
Yes.
it's not an age thing. I don't want people to think like, oh, I can't possibly start lifting weights. You start with a low weight and then you build and you will look back and there is an incredible journey that happens when you can just start building that strength.
Yes, yes, I love this. So I want to come back to the heart palpitations that you were having, which of course can be a result of magnesium deficiencies, thyroid problems, or just perimenopause by itself, because we know that the hormones act on or have a effect on cardiac function. Do you still have the heart palpitations?
No,
Amazing, isn't it?
no. I mean, when I tell you that I had the worst anxiety attack I've ever had, like, I don't know if you've ever had one, but I felt like I was dying. I felt
Wow.
like an elephant was standing on my chest. And I really thought I was having a heart attack.
Hmm.
And the craziest part of all is I wasn't stressed out. I was actually in church at the time. And I looked at my husband. I was like, something's going on. And I was like, I'll meet you outside. And all I could do was go outside to get some fresh air because I just felt like this incredible sense of like gloom and just pressure on my chest.
That's scary.
It was very scary. I never want to have that experience again. And, some people have varying degrees of, whatever happens to them during this period. But for me, I had never experienced anything like that before. I've always been active. I've always, I was an athlete when I was young. So it was just like, what is going on? And I wasn't comfortable just living with that. And that's really where I got that kind of heavenly download of like something is missing and we're going to have to fix it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And you actually got the message of what was missing. I love that. I think we get these downloads all the time, Maria. We aren't taught how to listen and embrace that. So, and of course, as women, intuition and instinct, this is a God-given gift for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll show you.
Yep.
This is like the Trinity,
Yep.
being able to take this in a form that's super easy. I don't love swallowing a bunch of pills
Mm-mm.
personally. So what I love is I'll just take these like right out of the packet.
Hmm. Do you squeeze them right in your mouth?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
just shoot it with a little bit of water, but
Yeah.
or you can drop it into the water and I just like to cocktail it.
Yeah.
It's like kind of this goo and it
Yep.
looks crazy, but you
It's
get
no
used
big
to
deal.
it and it's no
Yeah.
big deal. And I just kind of put them all in together.
Yep. I love that. My cocktail is the vitamin C and the magnesium 3 and 8. That's the ones I take in the morning together.
Yeah,
And those are the on the days where I really need my brain to work for sure that goes in. It's the first one I take. So easy.
literally, you just shoot that, you're done.
Oh, there you go. Easy peasy. I know I do that too. Sometimes I put too much water in in the glass and then yeah, so good. It's
I
so good.
actually don't mind the taste at all. And I know that it's getting absorbed. Vitamin C is just so incredibly important too. And I think it's just
Mhm.
one of those things that we grow up with thinking, oh, yeah, you got to get your vitamin C.
Yeah.
Well, no, we really need vitamin C because a deficiency in vitamin C is linked to
A
so many
multitude.
chronic
Yes.
diseases that we're seeing right now, inflammatory diseases. And, again, if we have proper levels of vitamin C,
Mhm.
we are arming ourselves against so many things. And
Mhm.
it's not like, obviously, it's not the end all be all, but it sure is super important. So if we're going to prioritize anything, it's got to be that magnesium, the vitamin C, and I think the B vitamins because it just
Mhm.
helps you manage so many other functions.
Stress.
Vitamin C, too,
Yep.
I just learned is incredibly important for collagen production and
Yes.
maintaining collagen, which
Mhm.
again, collagen is a primary protein. We,
Yeah.
really start to underproduce it after the age of 35. And since I started taking the vitamin C, I've gotten a lot of comments like, "Oh, what's your skin regimen?" And I'm like, I don't think it's my skin regimen. I actually think it's what I'm eating and taking.
Yes, yes, I absolutely agree. Well, and vitamin C is so important for things like wound healing. So I want to talk about
Yeah.
how you had this ACL injury and recovered from it. How old were you? And you said it was a freak accident with your son, right?
Yeah, so I was newly married, playing basketball with my son and my husband. And I was 51
Hmm.
when it happened. I'm 56 now. And I will never forget the feeling. It was almost like just my knee just kind of went out from under me. And when I look back, it's like, how did that even happen? It doesn't seem like I had really anything extreme that I did, but I think it's because I was lacking a lot of important things. And, when you don't have enough collagen in your connective tissue, it becomes brittle.
Hmm.
It's like a dry rubber band. And when you keep your connective tissue lubricated, it's a much more elastic, just like our skin. And I think, you know, when I found out that I had completely torn my ACL and had a longitudinal tear in my meniscus, oh, and in that same freak accident, fractured my tibia,
Oh
I was like,
dear.
something's wrong. Like,
Yeah.
this should not have happened. I should not be this fragile, at
Hmm.
51.
Hmm.
And that's really what set me off on my journey to start bodybuilding. And Fiona, I actually opted out of surgery. So I told my orthopedic doctor that I didn't want to do the surgery. And he was like, "Are you sure? It's going to be very hard for you to be active after this." And I was like, "I'm going to really try and do this on my own." I had spoken to a few friends of mine who are all athletes who had, you know, that ligament replacement surgery and they ended up re-tearing. And so I was like, I wonder if I could just kind of rehab. You can't grow a ligament back, but I wonder if I could just strengthen the muscles
Yeah.
around it and see if that would be sufficient.
Hmm.
And that's really what got me into bodybuilding. I was, kind of I truth is I was on the outside I looked fit, but I was actually very weak and not strong at all and lacked muscle. And so once I started really focusing on the muscle growth and eating for muscle growth, I started getting my knees so much stronger. And here I am, I'm going on, I guess it's 5 years now since the accident, a little over 5 years. And my legs are stronger than they ever have been without surgery.
That's amazing. The body is truly amazing and is able to heal so well if we give it exactly what it needs to heal. My own philosophy on healing, and I come by it naturally as a chiropractor, is that quite often the problem is not that we're lacking something when it comes to healing. It's that we need to support the things that are already there rather than, continually this surgery or that or whatever. And so it's deductive first. You look and you say, what's causing the problem? Well, the problem is, my system can't heal. My tissues are fragile. Was that an estrogen problem? Is it a collagen problem? Is it a low vitamin C? All of those things. We can do it that way. And I think that's such a beautiful way to do it. And the fact that you healed yourself, extraordinary.
Well, and a lot of that came from this mindset of deprivation, kind of going back to the eating disorder. I was
Yes.
so used to depriving my body in pursuit of this unrealistic, like, ideal, and that low self-image, really kind of destroyed my health from the inside out. It wasn't visible to people on the outside, but I was so weak and, really like there was a lot going on internally. The term skinny fat,
Yeah.
it ended up being a skinny fat situation. And when I focused more on body recomposition, it changed everything. It allowed me to relax about food, rethink food, and become a person that was more about like a healthy eater, and healthy not being, the world's ideal of healthy, but a truly healthy eater, to where I was getting enough protein to build muscle. I was getting enough nutrients like the vitamin C to, support collagen production. I was, managing and still am actively managing all of the symptoms, and that's really what I want to encourage everybody. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I think if you hone in on those three things, the magnesium, the B complex, and the vitamin
Vitamin
C,
C.
you're
Yeah.
going so far in supporting your body's required metabolic functions.
Yes.
And that from there, it's really about managing stress, getting good sleep, watching out for alcohol and caffeine,
Mm-hmm.
and drinking a lot of water. Those are like the big rocks.
Mm-hmm. 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 I like that. So, can you teach us how to read a supplement label, please?
Oh, well, let me just say we
Mm-hmm.
all need to be proficient in what I call the language of labelese. And labels are, especially food labels. Let me tell you, food labels are super, super important that we understand. I actually just did an episode about this because, recently the FDA announced that artificial petroleum-based colors will be phased out. But, in the meantime, we have artificial colors and synthetic preservatives and all genetically modified foods and all of these different things in our food, and it's really incumbent on us to read those labels. When it comes to supplement labels, I think your best bet, and this is kind of what I adhere to, it's not just about what is on the label, but what is it actually fulfilling for your not just recommended daily allowance, but to thrive. Because in a lot of cases, the RDA is actually not at a level of thriving. I think those some of those regulations, like with vitamin C, it was like to prevent rickets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But is
Yep.
that really what's going to get you healthy and
It's
protecting your body
yeah.
against, and boosting your immunity? Not necessarily the case. So I think, it's important to hone in on that. I think it's also really important to know about how the company actually creates those supplements, and is the supplement working to actually feed the tissue that it requires to be fed.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that function, that mechanism working? For vitamin C is water soluble. So if it's in a delivery system, I learned this from Dr. Levy, who was one of the premier, experts in this. When he helped me understand that if you have a water soluble material and it's not encapsulated in fat, it is not going to get into the cellular structure, into the cell wall. So it might get into the bloodstream, but is it actually getting absorbed properly?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we really want to take a closer look at those things. Magnesium, another situation where, if 99% of it lives in the cells, we want it to get uptaken into the cell immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's going to do the most benefit. So you can have something that's water soluble or fat soluble in that liposomal encapsulation. And it's just far more effective for the body to not only absorb it, but use it. And that's really what we're after.
Yes. I want to pivot a little bit. I've got a question I have for you. Upon looking at your bio, I see you were involved in the Daniel Plan.
Yes.
That is so cool. So, for
Yes.
those who are listening that don't know what the Daniel Plan is, can you tell us, please?
Yeah, so the Daniel Plan was created after Pastor Rick Warren had baptized 800 people and realized that not only did the congregation have a weight problem, but so did he. And so his mission was to get the body of Christ healthier. And so he worked with Dr. Daniel Amen for brain health, Dr. Mark Hyman for overall health, and then three signature chefs. And I was one of them. And we really, helped to kind of recreate what the pillars of health are. Because I think, again, we've got to throw out these ideas of diet culture and
Absolutely.
just working out to burn calories. What we really need to do is work out and eat for strength, like you said,
Mhm.
and know that food is information. When you eat something, it's not about a calorie. Calorie is what is a unit of measurement for when you burn, when you raise your body temperature and actually convert that into, something that you can use. But the food itself is information. So once it's taken into your body, it's feeding your cells, either feeding it or, creating a chaos situation. And so we created this program based on food, fitness, focus, friends, and faith. And those five pillars together are what create true overall health. And, you can meet somebody with a six pack and, looks aesthetically beautiful, but if they are, struggling and not happy, I mean, I don't know
Mhm.
if that's worth it.
Mhm.
So we've got
Mhm.
to find that balance in those five pillars help. And we really help to change millions of people's lives. I mean, I saw it with my own two eyes, people in my focus group that one couple, I think between the two of them, they were on like 40 different medications. And by the time they were done with an 8-week program, they were almost completely off of all medications.
Amazing. Amazing. And that's what we need. We need some kind of a focusing lens to look at that, not just throw more pills at people. This is a pet peeve of mine. So Dr. Amen is one of my teachers and has been for a long time, a lot of years.
Yeah.
Brain health is my specialty other than menopause. So that's how I heard about that. And I think because this was early 2000s, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
was done?
so the program's been around for I think we started working on it in 2014 or so. It's been
Yeah.
over 10 years. And I also got my brain health coaching
Mhm.
certification last year because it's just so important to understand how the brain's choices, how we actively engage our minds,
Mhm.
it becomes an incredibly important part of health. It really comes down to decisions.
Mhm.
And every decision has a repercussion. We might think like, oh, well, it's circumstances. McDonald's is out there serving this, so therefore it's a problem. Well, we have a decision whether or not
Yes.
we're going to get in the line.
Yes.
We have a decision whether or not we're going to take that drink. We have a
Mhm.
decision whether or not we're going to go to the gym today or
Yeah.
go for, a walk or do whatever that is. And I think brain health is intrinsically tied with overall health and vice versa. The foods that you eat, if you're starving yourself, you're not going to make good decisions. No one has
Mm-mm.
ever made a good decision
Mm-mm.
hangry.
Yeah.
So, and I see it with people who tend to have low blood sugar. They just melt down. I
Oh
have a
yeah.
a son
Yeah.
who I have to manage his blood sugar really closely. Tends to kind of just burn, a lot,
Mhm.
like a lot of sugar. And if he's not getting a good amount of protein, I can literally see it on his face. And
Yeah.
so I think it's really important to know who we are
Yeah.
and prevent that from happening, not just for our own well-being, for
Mhm.
good relationships. You were saying that earlier, like you want to have a
100%.
good, healthy marriage, you can't sleep on your plate, you know?
Absolutely. I can look at my husband and go, you haven't eaten or you haven't eaten enough protein. 100%. I can see when his blood sugar is dodgy. I can see it across the room. I can see it coming down the stairs. I
Yeah,
can't even see him. It's so you get
100%.
you just get so tuned in. And this is why I love a continuous glucose monitor, even for people that are not diabetic. If you use a glucose monitor for I think they're 2 weeks. They last for 2 weeks. Even if you do one, buy yourself one. Anybody can buy them. You just go into the pharmacy and ask for a continuous glucose monitor, and then watch what happens when you're stressed to your blood sugar, and watch what
Mm.
happens when you eat the foods you eat. And you will be surprised. And it's so much information. And Mareya, I think that's really useful information for people to have. And there's just little tips and tricks. And I love that. I have a mentor who says, if your problem can be solved with either a snack or a dance party, you don't have a problem. And I
Yeah,
think that's
I
really good
mean,
life advice.
well, and part of the journey, right, of really getting into your stride, not just surviving, but striving, or
Love it.
thriving rather,
Yeah.
is knowing your own triggers, and this is a big part of what I like to teach is if you know that having a box of cookies is going to be very difficult for you to self-regulate, then don't bring them into your house.
Yes.
Go out and have the treat if you want it. I also don't believe in like absolute deprivation either. I think we're human. There are a lot of great, better for you options out there. But if you really want that chocolate chip cookie, either share it with someone or go out for it. Don't
Mhm.
have things in your home that tempt you, that derail you. And, that again is part of just this whole approach to recognizing that we get to make these choices every single day.
Mhm.
And why put more stress and complication on our plates if we don't
A-
have to? And the
Absolutely.
stress part, you're right. I've seen it with continuous glucose monitors where people will eat and they think they're doing real good, but they're stressed out and they'll see their blood sugar spike. So our bodies don't want to be in that fight or flight
Mhm.
situation. Cortisol, creates that belly, that midsection fat. We have to manage our stress as midlife women too. And I have found that taking the B complex really helps with that. Also, taking ashwagandha has
Mhm.
played a big role in managing that cortisol production for me, excess cortisol production.
Yeah, yeah. We will make sure to put the link to these supplements that Mareya and I are talking about so passionately in the show notes, so you can go and take a look for yourself. So, where can people find out more about you, Mareya?
I have a website at chefmareya.com and Mareya is Mareya, and the same handles for social media. And, to me, being a chef is not just about cooking food, it's about chefing your life.
Mhm.
As the person in the kitchen that's responsible for
Mhm.
making sure everybody is doing their job and overseeing the outcome. We do that every day in our own bodies. And so I like to say, chef your own life, chef your own fit life. And I want to give the women and the men out there hope that it is not a decline. It is not a downward thing that we are engaging in right now. We can be stronger. We can feel better in our skin. We can, we've done so much already. You should be giving yourself a pat on the back
Mm.
instead of just coming down on yourself thinking, "Oh, I don't look this way. I don't." It's okay. You don't have to look like you did in your 20s, but you can certainly feel stronger. And, I want people to have hope that it's never too late to start. I started bodybuilding in my 50s. And,
Yes.
and I don't have big hulking muscles. I just have like a defined musculature. It's not this crazy, like over the top, idea that you might have. It's more of, can I lift the groceries? Can
Mhm.
I pick my, aging parent up out of a chair? Can I, reach and lift something above my head? These are all things that are really critical to aging well. So you don't even have to think bodybuilding, just think like, can I be functionally fit? And that's what will prevent injury and all of that, the decline that we tend to see physiologically.
I love it. And as you said, it's about choices. We get to choose now. And this is what I love about aging in this era is that our generation is scrappy enough that we are asking the questions and demanding the answers and really making change. And so I love to hear that your kids are watching you and saying this is how we can do it. I mean, I just happen to adore that we are at the pivot point now and we get to be part of it. We get to be the front edge of it. This is
We
awesome.
we we truly are the sandwich generation, right? Gen Xers are taking care of their kids. Many of them are adults now, but we're also caretakers for our parents in a lot of
Mhm.
cases.
Oh yeah.
So, I think being able to be physically strong isn't just kind of like a nice to have. It's a requirement,
Hmm.
because I don't know about you, but it's really important to me. My family is everything,
Yes.
and I want to be strong for them. And at the same time, I want to be, a role model, and somebody that, kind of exemplifies like what that looks like when if you don't have to worry about me having osteoporosis or, being immobile,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
when I'm in my 70s and 80s and 90s, like, isn't that a gift to your family?
Oh, is it ever? Is it ever? And it's such a different conversation than our parents were able to have. So I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing your experience
it's
and
been
your
a pleasure.
expertise. Oh, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I just love bringing women who have stories of hope and self-healing onto the show because I know it will touch many lives. So, Mareya, thank you for coming on the show. And I have a final question I ask all my guests, which I'm going to ask you now.
Yeah,
And it's like this. Knowing what you know now, what would you
yeah,
tell your younger self?
yeah. Um, I would tell my younger self that you are making a lot of decisions now, thinking that it doesn't affect you later, but it absolutely does. I
Mhm.
was never thinking towards the future. So I would tell my younger self, don't think for the now, think for 40, 50 years from now. And I think that would have changed a lot of my decisions, and how I thought about myself. Um, and I think it would have helped to prevent me from a lot of the pain that I went through, and perception of myself and relationships and things like that. But, I would also tell her it's going to be okay.
Mm, the most important message. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mareya Ibrahim, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
The information and other content provided in this show, or in any linked materials, is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.